Hey VC, this is Joe. Trying to do a quick video here. I just got back from a record store with what I think are some interesting finds. Um, Processing some of the stuff, and I wish I could take like a year sabbatical to just listen to records and sort of catch up with myself. But anyway, I want to show you what I got since I got some interesting, what I think is some interesting stuff. I'm playing this in the background, Violin by Oregon. I listened to it and, I guess in the late 60s, early 70s, with the hippies and everything, there were lots of people learning the sitar and playing Eastern influence music. And so sometimes that was done well and sometimes not, obviously. And when you listen to stuff in the record store, you generally can't take the time to really follow all the way into the music, but maybe get a sort of idea. And this just sounded intriguing and interesting to me. This has violin, oboe, bass, clarinet, bass, trill string, and classical guitars, piano, tabla, percussion, piano. Anyway, I think I looked them up, and they made a lot of music. Starting, I think, in 1972 or something. So, I don't know, I find this interesting. I don't know if you can hear this or get a really good idea. My webcam doesn't seem to have great sound. Anyway, funny thing about record stores is you can go in and look through the new arrivals or whatever and not really see anything. I do that a lot of times and then just leave. Thinking that I know this store inside. No. But occasionally I'll decide to look through a section to see if there's something that jumps out at me or something that they snuck into the shelves past the. I hate like the half-price books near my house doesn't have a new arrivals used section, so they expect you to just look through all of their used stuff all the way through all the time for any new stuff that might come in, and I just don't have time to do that. I mean, as much as I love looking for music, and their stuff tends to be crazy overpriced. There's so many times I want to take a picture in an unobsequious way, just because they'll have like a Common Public Image Limited album for like $29.99 or something. It's just like, what? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but occasionally I'll take the time to go through a section that maybe I have neglected in the past. So there's a newish YouTube group, Facebook group rather, called Jupiter and Beyond, I think, where they seem to focus on a lot of private press and sort of new agey type stuff. And that's an interesting niche. So it has me sort of looking at more of the private press or miscellaneous sections in record stores lately. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in that. There's that recent New Age compilation put out by Lady Attic called I'm the Center. Is that what it's called? Anyway, so that has put that kind of music more on the radar for a lot of people, and myself included. This music, like I was talking about it being influenced by Eastern music, it also is influenced by sort of modern atonal music and classical, which is sort of an interesting mixture of East and West. Again, stuff like that doesn't always work, but sometimes stuff is just interesting even if it doesn't work. Or maybe it works on some levels but on others it's sort of cat fight. Anyway, so I went through that section. And this store, this is Breakaway Records in Austin, Texas, by the way. They also have a sort of a newish section where they have 3 for $5 records. Usually stuff that they've had out for a while that people haven't bought, that they sort of dump into that section before dumping it into the dollar section. Maybe I'll show those first. Looks like somebody had some sort of interesting 80s um, um, import records, like new post-punk records maybe. So they didn't have many from that person, but it looked like they had a few, and I got probably half of what they had with these three, I guess. But this is a group called Urban Verbs, Early Damage. And this is, that post-punk kind of thing. There's a song in here called Acceleration that I had heard before that I was like, oh wow. I mean, there's so many songs, especially that I'm, been more obsessed with music since getting into the VC about a year ago. And I've acquired some collections through Craigslist and whatnot. And most of it has been junk. But sometimes I'll be playing a record and be like, oh, this hit is by this artist. I've heard the song a million times, but I didn't know who did this. And then sometimes with a more obscure record like this, it's like, oh, I heard that on, the radio at some point, college radio or something, but never knew what it was. And, if I hadn't found this, I probably would never have heard it again. Anyway, looking forward to listening to this in depth. Might look up the song Acceleration by Urban Verbs on YouTube. I'm sure it's probably there to see if it might be up your alley too. This is a group called Bone Orchard. The record is called Jack. And as you can maybe see from the writing on the back, it reminds me, just even in the look of it, of something like Lydia Lunch or Birthday Party, or what's the name of that group? Oh God, I can't remember everything. But anyway, this reminded me a bit of Birthday Party or something. But I think as a female vocalist, maybe. Let's see, Adam Ralph, Sue Bradley, Julia Palmer, Eileen Wallace. Those are the secondary performers. The main performers are Mark Horace, Troy Tyrell, Paul Henriksen, Ben Tisdall, Chrissy McGee. Anyway, this sounded interesting. I look forward to giving it a chance. And then this is a record that I keep happening upon one way or the other. This is a group called Theater of Hate. This album is called He Who Dares Wins. Says pay no more than £2.99. I think it says live LP. But anyway, I remember years ago, again from college radio, hearing the song Westworld. Do you believe in the Westworld? Has a neat rhythm to it. And somewhere along the line in the past year, I picked up a 12-inch of that. But here's an album. I guess it's a live album. And this reminds me a little bit, for some reason, because the rhythms of like Test Department, but not that industrial. I don't know. Anyway, it was just interesting to see these at a real reasonable price. And these are the kind of records you just don't see very often in a record store. You see classic rock, you see current indie favorites, but. And then I saw this. Again, some of thanks to the VC, I've been just trying to pay more attention to stuff that I don't recognize. I think when I was young and I would go to record stores and get records, I was looking for such a small sort of spectrum of stuff I was familiar with. There was like, oh, stuff, I don't need that. That's the stuff that represents another generation that I have no interest in. And this is the stuff that represents what I'm all about. And then there's all this stuff I don't know. And it's like, they say that you're blind to things that you don't have a context for. Saw this documentary where they showed these Africans, and they couldn't see between two colors that we see very clearly. They couldn't tell a difference because it just didn't register for whatever reason. And it's weird watching that because you can see on the TV them reacting and not seeing the difference between these colors. But then there were other colors that they could tell the difference between that typical Westerners can't. I don't know, so it just makes you think about what are your blind spots. We all have huge blind spots. And some people, obviously, if you're in the vinyl community, some people, and I don't mean this disparagingly exactly, but a lot of people sometimes myself included. I mean, if somebody asks me what my favorite music is, part of my favorite music is going to be the music I grew up with in the 80s, you know, post-punk and stuff like the Smiths and Joy Division and Group for Me, Throwing Music and all that to me. But anyway, stuff from my generation. And it's typical that you'll carry with you stuff that was impacting you in a huge way during a time that was traumatic and moving, and the world was opening up wide to you, and you were feeling all that very deeply, and you have these things to mark that experience by, and you're not necessarily approaching life that way all through life. But it's nice when you can remember to sort of fling those doors open and open yourself up to lots of different stuff. And that's one of the great things about the VC is in wanting to not disrespect other people's opinions and sort of, you know, if you respect everybody, then you sort of have to sort of regard their musical choices with respect and curiosity. And so maybe you'll go to YouTube and listen to some stuff that you wouldn't have given a chance otherwise. Or maybe you'll pick up a record on someone's recommendation. And, you know, I've done that before and been disappointed, and I've done that before and been blown away. So it goes both ways. Anyway, so I've been looking out for records that look different lately. Stop with Camel. I picked this up. This is a white label promo on Reprise Records. At least it seemed like it was the Reprise logo. Which is neat to see because, of course, when I see a Reprise logo, I think of Jimi Hendrix. And, of course, it would be awesome to find a white label promo Hendrix LP. I mean, it's neat to see just a white label Reprise logo in general. Anyway, this sounded interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily totally up my alley, but it sounded like it was worth a shot. Not something I'll run into every day probably. And then I, again, keeping in mind the Jupiter and Beyond Facebook group, I found these two records, Stephen Halpern, Eastern Peace. And sometimes it's easy to be prejudiced against records when people look, you know, I don't mean to be mean, but a bit gooberish. There was a new age, or sort of new age record that I sort of liked, but it seemed a little tame too. It didn't blow me away. I mean, this I found more interesting, so I got these two records, Eastern Peace and this one, Zodiac Suite, also by Stephen Halpern. Are these both on the same label? This is on SRI Records, and Halpern Sounds, I guess, a private label. Anyway, these sounded really interesting to me, more so than, again, the one that I skipped on and was slightly embarrassed about being interested in because of his goofy hair. Call me shallow, but I don't know, there's a part of me that's like, if your aesthetic is really dumb in some way, it makes me not trust your music. If your aesthetic is not weird, but, you know, anyway, hope it's not too offensive sounding. And then this I was really happy to find because I love Philip Glass, Steve Reich, and Terry Riley, although Terry Riley is one that I sort of had missed until recently. I'd been aware of him, but hadn't really heard his music. I remember getting a tape, or dubbing to tape, Salome Dances for Peace, maybe, and maybe something else. And for some reason, I don't remember having that making an effect on me. But recently, when I've been hearing Terry Riley stuff, it's been blowing me away. I've been really into drone music and this stuff, minimal classical. Anyway, this is early Steve Reich, and not Steve Reich, Philip Glass record that also has Yanis Xenakis and someone I'm not familiar with at all, Giacinto Skelsey. I have no idea how to pronounce that correctly. But anyway, this is on CP Recordings, which I'm not familiar with this label. There's some interesting labels that put out CP Squared, I guess. They're interesting labels that, like, when you discover them, you think, wow, I need to check out everything this label does, and this might be one of those labels for me. I don't know. But I heard some of this in the store, and again, it blew me away. Or I really liked it. I didn't listen to it long enough to be fully blown away. But let's see. I've shown these have been in the background in other videos. I might have even talked about them. But there's a Solaris soundtrack by can't remember his name. A Russian composer. I love Andrei Tarkovsky's films. And what's the name of that label? Oh, now I have to find it. Superior Viaduct is the label. Put out this wonderful reissue of Eduard Artemiev, his soundtrack to the Tarkovsky film Solaris. That's the back cover. It's interesting. There are 3 different cover images. So whichever one you got, if you ordered it from them, you didn't know which one you were going to get until you got it. So if you've seen this with a different cover, that's why. Next month, they're releasing the soundtrack to my favorite Tarkovsky film, and actually my favorite film of all time, a movie called Stalker. And also, I guess one side is Stalker, and the other side is The Mirror. Again, Artemiev's soundtracks to those Tarkovsky films. I picked up a couple of yellow vinyl, overpriced Third Man records when Third Man was down with a pop-up shop for the South by Southwest Festival here in Austin. Blind Willie McTell Volume 4 and Charlie Patton Volume 4. I love early blues and need more of it, and I bought it at their sort of high prices. Anyway. I gotta cut it off. Thanks.